Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 1990's Represent. We're on our third cycle of 1998, talking about an album in this episode. In this episode, we're talking about the Birty Boogie by the Brian Setzer Orchestra. Basically, a key part of the kind of mid to late 90s like swing revival movement. I remember this album kind of being everywhere. I didn't listen to the album right when it came out. I heard obviously some of the singles off it, like "Jump, Jive, and Wail," was kind of everywhere. It wasn't until years later that I actually listened to the full album. I really actually enjoyed it when I did eventually get around to listening to it. But it was just a very weird time where this kind of thing, and it wasn't just the Brian Setzer Orchestra. It was like the Big Bad Voodoo Daddy, I think like Cherry Poppin' Daddies, coming out and doing essentially swing music. Was just a very weird kind of throwback. I think it was really cool, but also kind of came out of nowhere. It was a really interesting time in the 90s where stuff like that could happen. I have some notes here about it. We're going to go through those notes and then get to the track list and all that kind of stuff as well. So let me just pop this open here. So we have the Birty Boogie by the Brian Setzer Orchestra. First released June 23rd, 1998. This is their third studio album. I think kind of the one where they really put them at the forefront of like being popular, because it was like I said, a key part of the kind of swing revival was this album. Several other, like musicians took part of that kind of revival as well. But this was their third studio album. I think they're still around. Probably maybe not quite as popular as they were at this time. This is probably like potentially the height of their popularity. Like I said, 90s was just an interesting time for like musical trends. Like I was reading an article, I'll link the article in the description below, as well as a very interesting kind of like Reddit thread or Reddit post about this, where it was just like kind of like people were surprised that it caught back on. I don't know if this kind of revival would be able to happen now, but it was very weird. Just like you had kind of like people on the Reddit post were calling it like the TRL era, Total Request Live, and how swing music from like years ago, decades ago, like when it came out, was kind of back and popular again. I think there was like definitely a lot of nostalgia in the 90s for previous decades. Like I always kind of say this nostalgia works usually in like 20-year cycles, because I think in the 90s a lot of people were nostalgic for the 70s, but even then there was a lot of nostalgia in the 90s for the 1950s as well. But if you go back to the 1970s, you got a lot of people being nostalgic for the 50s, like Happy Days being like a prime example of that. And then early 2000s, you definitely had 80s has kind of always been in, but I remember it was definitely very noticeable in the early 2000s, especially with stuff like Grand Theft Auto, Vice City, and so on. But just the musical trends at the time when this came out were just very interesting, because it's definitely like an older genre, but I still think it's a very good genre of music. It's very entertaining to listen to. I think in the article I was reading, it mentioned us having in the 90s, having kind of like early 90s having kind of this like the grunge scene, and then late 90s kind of like complete inverse of grunge with just like with swing music. So the decade is just incredibly interesting from that. Obviously Brian Setzer from the Stray Cats, that's kind of how I knew them, at least to start. Remember listening to the Stray Cats when I was like a kid a little bit. I think like Rock This Town and songs like that. Stray Cats I think are back together now, or like I think like this band was the Brian Setzer Orchestra, I think was formed when they were on like a hiatus or something like that. The artwork for the album over that way, can never remember, I have to point in the opposite direction, but the album artwork over there, right over there, just very nostalgic. Like you have like some like tiki cups on there, you have people like in like the like lounge clothes swinging. Sir Richard Wentworth designed the album cover, and I think it's a very awesome just cover. Like the colors on it, like the greens and the blues, really work well together. But apparently it was originally designed to be a poster for a concert. Thinking that he was going to play a show and like commissioned this artist, and this was like the concept art for that poster. And then eventually they ended up repurposing that and going a different direction with that, I think, and making it the album artwork. Very cool artwork, by the way. Bunch of songs on the album are covers. Like probably the most well-known song on the album is "Jump, Jive, and Wail," and that's actually a cover. We'll get to that once we get to the actual track list and all that kind of stuff. Some just little side story about the kind of revival. This took off kind of my senior year of high school. So like 1998 is when I started that senior year, and 1999 is when that year ended. So like started in the fall of 98, graduated spring of 1999. At our little, wasn't the graduation, it was like a little pre-graduation thing we did. So basically I think we got off in the middle of the week that day. Mentioned it in another video that I think I got off on a Wednesday, and we drove down into the city to see Star Wars Episode 1. We had Thursday, that was on a Wednesday. We had Thursday off. Friday we had to go back to do some kind of, was nothing school related. It was just like, hey, we're going to go and do this thing at the park. And then basically at that evening, that Friday evening, we had this kind of, they showed some videos. They had the class in there. It was kind of like I guess like just like a pre-graduation kind of thing. People were able to go to it and watch the stuff. But two people in my class decided they wanted to, and obviously they had been planning this for a long time because they were very good at it. But I don't recall what song they did it to, but they were basically putting on a whole dance routine to various like swing songs. And they were very good at actually doing the swing dancing. It was pretty impressive. But that was part of that pre-graduation thing, and that was really cool. I don't know if The Mask, the Jim Carrey movie from like 4 years earlier, because that definitely could have been a component in the swing revival, because I think they had a bunch of stuff from I think it was the Glenn Miller Orchestra, in one of the more iconic scenes in that movie. And we'll probably cover that movie at some point on this series once we get back to 1994. But that could have been a part of it. The movie Swingers could have also been a factor as well. But it was just kind of like a big throwback to those eras, which was pretty interesting. That's going to do it for that part of the video. We're now going to jump into our track list. Let me pull this up here. So the album's 49 minutes and 24 seconds long. Let me just see what the covers are, because I think the covers are, let's see, to double check this. So the covers on the album, as we'll get to the list in a second, are Jump, Jive, and Wail, This Old House, Since I Don't Have You, Nosy Joe, As Long as I'm Singing, and then You're the Boss, You're the Boss as well, and Rock This Town, which is a kind of a cover, because it's like originally, I guess it's like a recover, because it's a Brian Setzer song, but it was done by the Stray Cats, and now they were recovering it on this album. So we have 13 tracks here for 49 minutes and 24 seconds. The first track is This Cat's on a Hot Tin Roof. Track 2, title track, is The Dirty Boogie. Track 3 is This Old House, which is originally a Stuart Hamlin song. Let's Live It Up is track 4. Into track 5 is Sleepwalk. Sleepwalk is just an amazing, just completely instrumental track. Probably my favorite track on the album, actually. Like, it's just a really good track there. Track 6, the big one, Jump, Jive, and Wail, which is a Louis Prima cover. Prima, I'm not really sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. You're the Boss is a cover by Jerry Leader and Mike Stroller, but that also features Gwen Stefani as well. Track 8 is Rock This Town, kind of like a recover from the Stray Cats. Track 9 is Since I Don't Have You. That's also a cover as well. Track 10 is Switchblade 327. Track 11 is Nosy Joe. Track 12 is Hollywood Nocturne. And track 13, another cover, is As Long as I'm Singing, which is a Bobby Darin cover. So again, we have 13 tracks at 49 minutes and 24 seconds. The orchestra, the musicians on the orchestra, the main musicians are Brian Setzer, Ernie Nunez, Bernie Dressel, Don Roberts, Ray Herman, Rick Rossi, Steve Marsh, and Tim Messina. I'm probably mispronouncing that. Then there's George McMullen, Mark Jones, Michael Valatic, Vlakovic. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Robbie Hioki, and then we have finally Dan Farino, Dennis Furris, John Fumo, Kevin Norton, and in the band covering, like the various saxophone, trombone, and trumpet sections of the orchestra. But yeah, just a very interesting time in music where this swing revival came about. Kind of came about and kind of went away fairly quickly. I guess it's now probably more. There probably is still swing bands. It's probably just more underground now and not necessarily as mainstream as it got. One little other funny story about the swing revival related to this happened in 1999. But I remember going to rent a tuxedo for the senior prom. A bunch of my classmates were at the tuxedo store. So I go in there, and they actually have in their catalog of what tuxedos you can rent. I ended up just renting a more traditional tuxedo. I think my friend rented like a white one. But they had a zoot suit as well. Probably to try to, just to kind of capitalize off of the swing revival. I didn't rent that. I don't know if anybody at our actual prom rented that or not. But it was just very interesting that the tuxedo store was renting that had that ready to go. Again, it's good, or it'll be interesting to see how many people actually rented that. Like I said, I didn't actually see it at the prom that I was at. But that is going to do it for this video. So remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We'll be back again in a few days covering a movie from 1998. And then we will be jumping into a video game from 1998 as well. And then we'll move into 1999 and then all the way back to the beginning when we start our fourth cycle of the decade. But that's going to do it for now. So thanks for watching. Take care and have a good one. See ya.